Yusuf returned to Bellemont from abroad after many years, the village surprised him. Children playing in dusty streets, shops open late, people laughing in courtyards. Life had clearly moved on, but there was one strange rule that had not changed. No one went into the forest at the edge of the village, and inside that forest was the graveyard. It was not a place of fear in the way haunted stories are told. It was something quieter, heavier. Children are totally forbidden to speak about it. Yusuf had returned for one reason, to sell his father's ancestral house and go back abroad. Nothing more. His elder uncle met him the same evening. When Yusuf mentioned the graveyard casually, the uncle's expression changed immediately. He leaned closer and said,
"Don't go near that forest.
Why, it's just a graveyard."
Ignore it, even if it calls your name."
Yusuf laughed it off, thinking it was village superstition, but the uncle's silence stayed with him longer than the words. That night, Yusuf stayed in his father's old house. The village was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Around midnight, he heard something coming from the direction of the forest. At first, he ignored it, but then it came again. The uncle's words returned to his mind. Ignore it. He tried, but the sound didn't stop. Yusuf walked toward the forest edge. Deeper he went, the colder it became. Then he reached it, the graveyard. Old stone markers stood between twisted trees. Yusuf stepped forward slowly. Between the graves, he saw a man digging. The man slowly turned and looked at him. His eyes were completely white, just empty light reflecting the moon. Then it slowly began walking toward Yusuf. Yusuf froze. His heart pounded violently in his chest. Yusuf panicked. He turned and ran blindly through the graveyard, while the sound of the dragging shovel echoed behind him in the darkness. Next morning, Yusuf went to the village church. He told everything: the sound, the forest, the man. The priest listened without interruption. When Yusuf finished, the priest spoke calmly. "You should leave this village immediately." But Yusuf frowned. "Everyone keeps saying that. Why?" "Because you heard the graveyard calling." That night, an old man came to the church, older than anyone. The old man slowly sat across from Yusuf. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, he began to explain the truth. The graveyard was not always a graveyard. It was once a mining site. Long ago, Bellemont had a mine deep in the forest. It brought workers, machines, and life until the flood came. Heavy rains collapsed the mine from within. The tunnels caved in. Hundreds of miners were trapped underground. Some died instantly, some did not, but none were ever brought out. After the collapse, the land above the mine became unstable. At night, villagers began hearing something from that ground, and people began disappearing near that area. To stop it, elders of that time created something unusual. They placed a massive steel plate deep into the ground above the collapsed mine. Then they buried it beneath layers of soil and stone. Then they built a graveyard over it. Each grave acted as weight to stabilize the earth, and a family line was chosen as keepers. As years passed, people forgot, but the keepers remembered. Their duty never ended. Every night he'd dig above the steel plate and maintain the seal, because if the pressure failed, the cooling ground would reopen. Years later, another flood came. It seeped into the graveyard, weakened the seal, and something beneath became aware again. People again started disappearing near the graveyard. Then one night, a villager saw the keeper digging between the graves. The villager misunderstood what he was seeing. He believed the keeper was connected to the disappearances. He ran back to the village and informed the others. That night, a group of villagers entered the graveyard carrying lanterns, ropes, and farming tools. The keeper tried to warn them, but panic had already blinded the village. They dragged him and killed him there in the mud. But the duty was not tied to life, it was tied to the seal. So his spirit remained digging every night, even after death. The next night, Yusuf returned quietly to his father's old house. He could not stop thinking about the graveyard. Fear slowly settled into his heart. Yusuf decided that he would leave the village the next morning, no matter what. That night, Yusuf finally fell asleep. After midnight, Yusuf opened his eyes slowly. The keeper, standing silently in the corner of the room, covered in wet mud. Then the keeper moved. The keeper dragged Yusuf's soul out of his body. It floated behind him like a broken shadow. Next morning, villagers found Yusuf's body in his house, covered in wet mud. No wounds, no explanation, only soil. They buried him in the graveyard because there was nowhere else. The priest stood at the edge of the village. His face carried a heavy sadness. He knew the truth that no one else understood. That night, the villagers heard it again. But now there were two rhythms. The graveyard in Bellamont was never a resting place for the dead. And now there were two keepers, one old, one new.